Are up and running. First of all, thank you for coming. And we're talking about compassion fatigue this morning. So think about it when you woke up. Did you say, "Oh, good God, it's morning"? Or did you say, "Oh, good God, it's morning"? That'll probably give you a just on just where you are in the level of compassion fatigue. But my name is Cheyenne Autumn. I have formerly been a junior high health and PE teacher for 21 years. And then I was United Healthcare's wellness director for 21 years, so I kind of had dual careers. I have been in the area of wellness for over 40 years, and I was one of the first ones to start a wellness program for our staff. As I was teaching, I noticed that the teachers were looking like they had a little too much compassion fatigue. So I went down to the head office and asked him if I might start a wellness program. And he said, "We don't need one of those. What is that? We don't have any idea." Well, almost the next week, the hospitals came and offered to do a wellness program for them for $39 per person. And so the lowly health ed, phys ed teacher looked pretty good, so they called me back down. And that's kind of where I started doing wellness. Then I started going out and setting up other wellness programs around the Midwest, and that's when I started doing a lot of public speaking. So when I retired, I jumped back into the public speaking now. So anyway, I hope we have a good time today. Be sure, like I said, I taught junior high, so you can interrupt me at any time. It doesn't bother me. You know, one day I thought I was really teaching great. This kid was getting up out of his seat, and he came up to the front, and I thought, what is he going to say? And he grabbed a Kleenex off my desk, blew his nose for the whole class, and then went back and sat down. And so, you know, that's about the case of junior high kids. But I love junior high, and people said, "Were you crazy?" But you know, when I was 5 years old doing dishes with my grandma, she gave me probably my greatest life lesson. She said, "Establish yourself as crazy early in life. Then you can do anything you want to." So I've kind of lived by that code because I think it's a way to keep yourself somewhat sane, and especially in a job such as you are doing. And I know that compassion fatigue is one of the things that happens to us all because the traumas of daily life, not only with the people that you work with, not them, but your own clients, but your own home and your own personal life. Sometimes, as strange as it may seem, work is the stable part of your life because we never know what's going to happen in our home lives, but we kind of get a feel for the rhythm of work. Yes, there are periodic things that go on that make us go, "Oh, wow." But normally, we do have an idea of how work goes. So, we're going to try this. First of all, this is a disclaimer. It's kind of like when I did PE and health, we always had people say to hold harmless. This is just to tell you that, you know, what I say and what these slides say is just what we say. It's nothing to put right up about necessarily. So this training, hopefully by the end of the day, or maybe you already know, that's why I would say I would take your expertise at any time. Jump in there with what you already know. But by the end of the day, we hope you understand who is at risk, define compassion fatigue, recognize the signs and symptoms, the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout, learn your level of caregiver fatigue, understand how to get better. You know, who is a caregiver? Who do you put in the term caregiver? Just about everyone, yeah. All of you in this room, but almost everyone is a caregiver. A good friend is a caregiver. A mom is a definite caregiver. Sometime when you have spare time as a parent, write down all of your roles that you have as a parent. You know, your safety director, you're the mom, you're the organizer, you're the calendar organizer, the social director, all these things. Nurse, you do the band-aiding, you know. My kids still call me and ask me, "I got stung by a bee, what do I do?" I go, "Same thing as we did. Throw some mud on it, it'll be good. It's fine." Mud? Oh yeah, quickest thing. Anyway, we are all caregivers. Some of you have a career in caregiving, and that's what you are doing. So you have a little bit more thing. I've done a lot of these workshops for pastors. You know, pastors are ultimate caregivers, and they forget to take care of themselves. And that can be one of the biggest problems about caregivers, is forgetting to take care of yourself. So we're going to talk a lot about that, making sure that you are. Other things that people are doing, we're kind of the sandwich generation. We have elder parents that we're taking care of too. So we're entering into that phase of where you're having to also not only work here, maybe take care of your family, but taking care of the issues of your elder parent. And mine keeps trying to take care of me. I keep saying, I'm not that old yet. I'm not that old. So, do you want to move in with me? No, I do not. I'm happy where I am. I don't ever want to move in, really. So, and I go in the mirror and I go, do I look that old that she thinks she needs to have me? And if I don't call or they don't hear me, I was painting my house. They were calling like twice a day. I am climbing down off the ladder to answer. We're just checking to make sure you're okay. I was. Now I had to get down and up and down and up. So, yeah. So there are the caregivers. So these are the people who are at risk. Any individual who provides empathetic care is considered a caregiver. And they're also the people that are capable of ending up in compassion fatigue. I really do like the term compassion fatigue. I didn't use that a lot when I was doing just normal wellness presentations, because I hear you're going to do stress management, and I love doing stress management. But when you have traumatic events, just like we get our own example today, what happened in, up in Maine. All those people, and even us, but the people right in Maine right now are kind of in compassion fatigue. Because they say every one of them knew someone that was probably involved in that shooting. And not only that, they don't know where the guy is that shot everybody. So then they're all worried. People that are in their homes are worried that they might show up at their house. That whole time is very traumatic. And that pushes you beyond the level of just stress sometimes to the compassion fatigue. It's the ongoing. Think about the pandemic. That was a real example of compassion fatigue. You see all the nurses that were getting in their car, calling into the news things and telling their stories. It was horrible. It's a horrible story when they were telling about how hard it was being in the hospital, taking care of people day in, day out. People who were dying and they couldn't even talk to their family. People who they couldn't help. They knew when they got there they were dying. And they were not getting any break. They were staying in the hospital, or they were only changing outside their door, afraid to see their family. So they would change outside their doors and then go right back to work. That definitely leads, a traumatic situation, definitely leads to compassion fatigue. And it really starts wearing down the body. I'm going to talk to you today, and even if you're at the next one, you'll learn about the stress management. To me, there are 3 stages of stress. And I think everybody should know the 3 stages of stress. Reason being, you can catch yourself when you know that you're really in them. And if you know you're in the one a long time, then you start worrying about being in compassion fatigue. So the first stage of stress is the alarm stage. What happens to you when your alarm goes off in the mornings? You hit snooze, yeah. And why do you hit snooze?
You want to go back to sleep.
Want to go back to sleep?
I set my alarm 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
I set like 5. a minute apart.
I had a roommate in college. She set hers an hour. It'd go off every 10 minutes for the hour. I said, just set it for 7, because I'm awake once it goes off. But what does the alarm do to you when it goes off?
It heightens you.
Right, it heightens all of your senses. You see better, hear better, smell better. The adrenaline kicks into your body. Your muscles tense up. You're ready to move. That's the alarm phase. When you hit the snooze alarm 2 or 3 times, it's because you need more doses of adrenaline to get going. You're just like too tired, so you hit it again, and then you hit it again. So the alarm stage, we know that. If you went out here and pulled out on the road and almost got hit by a truck, you would know that, and that would be the alarm stage. If it didn't hit you, stress goes away because it didn't happen. If you go home tonight and you hear a loud noise in the bedroom, and you go back in the bedroom and you see that it was just a stupid cat knocking over the plant, other than maybe yelling at the cat, the stress goes away. But if you see a dark, shadowy figure in the corner, the stress remains. Then you have to decide the key phrase of the alarm stage, which is fight if you have to, flee if you need to, the fight or flight response. Now, of course, my junior high kids would always say, I just get a bat and I'd go right at them. Like, yeah. Most of us are a little smarter than that, and we would run, So fight if you have to, flight if you need to. That's the initial stage of stress. That's the one we know the most. But what happens if you had this dark, shadowy figure, or even if it doesn't even have to be, if somebody just accidentally scared you once? Don't you every time you come around that spot where they were, kind of peek around the corner to make sure they're not there again, so they don't scare you again? Yeah. 100. My folks went to visit the grandparents, and they left my older brother and myself home. And I went to bed, but then I heard him come home, and I thought, being a good sister, I'll go up and make him a sandwich or something, because it was like midnight and he just got off work. So I go up. He's in the refrigerator rummaging around, and I know that it's him because he was the center on the football team, so he's like 6'4" and 225. So I knew it was him, but he had a gorilla mask on. And he turns around and growls at me. I fall down the steps because I'm backing up and bang my head on the thing on the steps, and he's dying laughing because that's exactly the reaction he wanted. Do you think I ever went to greet him again? No. I just go, sounds like him? I hope it is him, because I'm sure not going to see. But that's the resistance stage of stress, because once you've had an initial stress response, you remain in the initial stage of stress, which is called resistance. And most of us live in the resistance stage of stress 85% of the time. There's something that triggers, and you'll know when the triggers go off. What if you walk into a room and they all stop talking? What do we usually think? Oh, they're talking about me. They were talking about me. That comes from what? Junior high or earlier, where people were doing that, It's probably not even what they're doing, but, we have those flashbacks that go in our head. That's the resistance stage of stress. But the last stage is the exhaustion stage of stress. And many people live in the exhaustion stage of stress. And it's just like it says. You're exhausted. You hit the snooze alarm 2-3 times to get up because you're just too tired. Some of you have headaches. Some of the headaches have now grown into migraine headaches. Some people have stomach aches but have now grown into ulcers. The resistance stage of stress leads to illness generally. I've been in wellness all these years, and what I have really learned, if you can manage your stress, you will have less illness than the average, because you'll know how to roll with it. So think about that. I saw this little boy, he was in the grocery store, he's like 5. And do kids have stress? Absolutely. It may not be like financial or money like ours, but they have stress. And he's standing in the grocery line, and his mom's going through, and he's going, I'm stressed to the max. And she's not listening to him. So I lean down, I go, so tell me, why are you stressed to the max? Well, I started kindergarten today. And then I get home and I have to practice the piano. And then I have to go to jiu-jitsu. And then I have to go over here for soccer practice. He says, there's no time to play. In this kid's life, his life was over because there was no time to play. I think sometimes we feel that way. There's no time to play. Life is over. We just work, and then we die. And then work, and then we die. Or, or work, and then it's the weekend, and we sleep half of Saturday, and then we work again. And so, there's no place to play. So think about it when you're looking at compassion fatigue. What are you doing? What are some things that you can do to make it different? And who does it affect? So it affects all of us, and it compounds over time. What is compassion fatigue? It's an extreme form of stress, and that's why I like it. Why I like it that they've labeled it now. It's kind of a secondary form of stress, but it would be more extreme because it's a traumatic situation for a long time, or a situation such as you all may be in, because you're being empathetic every day, all of the time. And at some point, it can start wearing you down if you don't take care of yourself. I'm not saying you've chosen the wrong profession. I'm saying what you have to do when you're a caregiver is learn very carefully how to manage your own time and your own self so that you can take care of yourself when you need to. You need to understand who is at risk, and you are very much at risk. Pastors are very much at risk. Nurses are very much at risk. Doctors, firemen, all of these people that you see in here, they're very much at risk. More so than your average person. Teachers are at risk, more so today than they used to be, because nobody likes a teacher anymore. You were all telling how many years, and I taught 21 years, and the last year that I was teaching, I'm going down the attendance, and I'm looking at some of the kids, and I'm going, so, not your sister anymore, is it? Nope, that's my mom, and she says to tell you hi. I'm glad to see you're still alive. I said, so am I. I had to go outside in the hallway and kind of hyperventilate for a little bit. But it was great at parent-teachers conference, because when these kids parents came that were students of mine back in the day, I could just shake my head going, yeah, well, what are we going to say? And they go, I know, I wasn't very good, was I? I go, well, you're interesting. Well, let's put it interesting. You were an interesting child. Because I started teaching in the 70s, and that, if you remember the 70s, that was the big drug years. So it was quite frequent that I had 10 kids sitting because I looked in their eyes and thought, no, you're not getting on the trampoline. I don't know what you're on, but you're not getting on the trampoline, so you just sit there for today and watch everybody else, because they were doing everything in those days. That were the big drug years, and so you had to kind of watch them. You send them to the nurse, but she was like 95, and she'd send them back, go, they look fine to me. Okay, whatever you say. It was first defined in the 1950s, and I got to be totally honest with you. I just learned about compassion fatigue. I've always known that caregivers had a kind of a specific type of fatigue, but I didn't really grasp onto it till about 5 years ago. But I love it because I think that it explains why what you do is important, extremely important, but what you also need to do is take care of yourselves as you're going through this. So, what can it be? When you're looking at the onset of compassion fatigue, there's compassion fatigue, and it comes on. It can be sudden. Not necessarily, though. It can kind of creep in on you. But it could be sudden. If you saw a traumatic event, like, we'll go back to the beating and the what's going on in Maine. When those people have to walk in there to that bowling alley and see these people, those police officers, those people that are coming in there are going to have instant traumatic experience. Their parents, the ones that were killed, the kids, they have instant traumatic experience. Their counselors who are working with them and helping them move through this, that's going to be an instant traumatic experience. And it's going to be a long-term traumatic experience. It isn't something that they go to bed tonight and say, I need to be well tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You have to work at it. You have to find sources. So it happens due to caring for others. Obviously, when you care for others, that makes a big difference. It's an emotional and physical pain. My son went to college and lived in an apartment. He wanted to live in an apartment there in Omaha, Nebraska. He wasn't probably there a month, and some guys broke in and beat him up really badly and stole his money. He had a bunch of kids over that were, they were gambling on football, just a bunch of college kids. And so evidently these people knew that there was probably some money in there. So they came in, beat him up, left him for dead, and we get a call in the middle of the night that your son, is badly beaten. And that was instant trauma for us. I worked at it and worked with him, but it was traumatic for him for almost 2 years. It's still sometimes. He still says, if he goes out in the fall and smells fall leaves, because that's when it happened, sometimes that'll trigger a response. And we have those triggers. And so we learned, the whole family learned, we all experienced it a little bit differently. Me, I'm more the empathetic one, but my husband was the one who walked through all the steps to get everything done. Get him packed up, get him moved, get him out of there, get him back home, do all this. I'm kind of the one that we need to do this, move him through this, move him through that. And that's compassion fatigue. You get tired because you're trying to help. When you're dealing with somebody who's sick, let's say they have cancer, and you're the good friend or the family member who's taking care of them. You're doing well because you're staying positive for this person, but you go there every day, and you see it every day. And every day you go see the cancer person, they might be looking a little worse. And you still have to keep that smile on your face and bring joy to them. So that's when you start wearing down. Nothing wrong with it. That's totally natural. What you do is, how can I balance this? When I know this is going on, what can I do to feel better about it? Emotional and physical pain from the trauma of others. And we actually feel it. Those of you who are mothers, you know that. My head hurt for days after my son got beat. Even on a lesser scale, when my daughter blew out her ACL, my knee hurt forever. I could hardly walk up the steps because of the ACL. So think about that. They can build over time. So you eventually get to this point, physical and emotional exhaustion. You don't want to be exhausted, but you're getting to that point. Or you start feeling overwhelmed. What happens when you feel overwhelmed? What happens to your work? It goes down. Yeah. Because it's you just can't quite process that much stuff. What do you do if you're the coworker and you know somebody's work's going down because they're overly stressed? What?
You help them compensate for it.
Very good. You help compensate, you know. You can recognize. There are signs. How do you recognize some of the signs of somebody feeling overwhelmed?
Someone might be pacing.
Okay, they might be pacing.
Get angry easily.
Get angry quicker. Yep, that's another thing.
Zoned out.
Zoned out. You ask them a question, they don't seem to relate with what you're doing. All of these are good. Any others? Do they look different? Generally? Hygiene, a good point, hygiene. Their hygiene goes down. So when you see that within a coworker or a family member or someone, a good friend, recognize that this might be something they're going through. And that's a good time that you'll be able to help. You'll be able to ask them, is there anything I can do? Be compassionate like you just said. Understand what's they're going on. Maybe you can pick up part of their load for a while to help them get through whatever trauma they're going through. So it doesn't mean, like it says here, it doesn't mean that your view of the world is bad or damaged and it can be easier to fix by a change in environment. Not necessarily. A change in environment may be just for going outside and walking around, but just moving or leaving a job or doing that isn't going to help. That doesn't make things better. Yeah. But it does help to go outside sometimes. Sometimes just clear the air. You know, remember when little kids, they tell you to shake it off? So sometimes that's what we almost need to do is shake it off so we don't feel so stressed. How do you recognize it? Here's some of the things. You hit them pretty good. Isolation. How do people isolate themselves? Keep their office door closed. Hide in their cubicle if they have it. What?
Yeah,
Doesn't socialize. Junior high kids were very physical about it. They had jackets, they'd pull them up over their head. You knew something was going on. I'd try to catch them afterwards, but they'd have hoodies and they'd be like sitting at their desk with it clear over. You knew that kid had something going on, and it was easy to talk to him. Isolation. Poor, no self-care, you guys got that one. Overeating, overspending, overeating, those addictions start happening. Easy to do. We feed ourselves when we don't feel good about ourselves. We sometimes feed ourselves. Flashbacks and nightmares. They may or may not tell you about that, but if you're having flashbacks and nightmares, then you know it. I think my dad had World War II nightmares his whole life. I don't remember hardly ever that Dad was done having nightmares. Then I just watched that Netflix show, The Pacific. I go, well, no wonder he's having nightmares. He wouldn't ever talk about it much, but we didn't think he was in the thick of it, but he was sometimes in the thick of it. He was on the battleships that the planes flew in and out. That's what he did. But sometimes he was in the forest, like you're seeing, or not forest, the jungles. But being checked out, sadness, sometimes people just, crying over almost anything, any little thing. That can be a sign. Exhaustion, we went that. Health issues start coming along. So pay attention, and pay attention to yourself. Those are clues to you that you need to, catch it before it gets further. Signs and symptoms at work. This is when you can talk to your people at work. What are they doing? How are they getting by with it? I picked out a couple. You already mentioned it, but absenteeism. If somebody has been coming all the time and suddenly they're missing some days, one a day a week or every Friday or just whatever, they're missing more than they used to. That's a sign that something's going on, because people generally show up for work. Aggressive behaviors, we mentioned that. Difficulty completing assignments. They seem to not get it done. They're almost done, but not quite. That can be part of being compassion fatigue. When you do that again, like you say, pick up on them. Any of those others that you recognize? Do you ever think somebody's being lazy when they maybe are having health issues? They'll appear maybe lazy, and you're thinking, why am I picking up their work? Why am I doing everything for them? Yeah. I got a great poem I want to read you, because sometimes in this society, we tend to be, blamers a little bit. So I'm going to read you a little poem that maybe will help you. It's called The Cookie Thief. It said, a woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She bought a book in an airport shop and a bag of cookies and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as can be, was taking a cookie or two from the bag between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scream. She munched cookies and watched the clock while the gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the moments ticked by, thinking if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. But with each cookie he took one too. With only one left, she wondered what he'd do. With a sheepish smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh, brother, she thought, what nerve, and he's also so rude. Well, he didn't even show any gratitude. She had never known when she had been so galled, and sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her things and headed for the gate, refusing to look back at that thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank into her seat and sought her book, which was almost complete. As she searched through her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. Oh, if mine are here, she moaned with despair, then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize and filled with grief, she realized that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. Many times we are the cookie thief. We blame somebody else for something we're not getting. On a low scale, I used to be yelling at my kids. We had a place where you're supposed to put the car keys, because they didn't have their own car. They were driving the family car a lot of time. And we were always supposed to put the keys there so everybody could get them. One day they weren't there, and I'm yelling, if you would all just put the keys right here where they're supposed to be, we could all get out of here on time. And I put on my jacket, and I reach in my pocket and go, never mind. It's quick. We're quick to blame sometimes, and in work we are. And sometimes when things aren't going in our life, we look to blame. Victims are oftentimes. I think when you blame, you become a greater victim. I try to encourage people, don't be a victim. Own it. Own your power. Because when you become victimized, you give away your power, and then you feel even worse. And same with you. Don't be a cookie thief. Try to avoid the cookie thief syndrome. Okay. I love this slide. I don't know. Have you ever taken this stress test before? Any of you? Yes. Good. I think, get the slides. If you have a pen, this is worth taking. Reason being is sometimes I know when I'm in the top 5, or at least I have 5 of the big scores, That's a time that I know I need to take better care of myself. Things like moving, things like divorce, things like financial stress, new job, all of those are in the high categories. You need to kind of recognize those. So if you yourself are in them, that's a good time to take really good care of yourself. It's also good questions to ask some of your clients. If they're in some of these things, it can push you over the edge. So look at the change in eating habits, change in number of marital arguments, so you're having more of those. Get 23 points, 35 points for that. Change in living conditions, 25 points. All these things, you can total up. If you're having a lot of arguments, get some more points. Marital reconciliation gives you 53 points. Points make a difference, and I always think whenever I get up to the high category, whenever I'm over the 300, or even in the 150 to 299, it's time to balance myself and to figure out, because I know. How many of you drink coffee every day? Some caffeine in it. I don't drink coffee, but I do Diet Pepsi, so it's the same difference. Okay, what does caffeine do to you? Stimulates you. Puts the body, 1 cup of coffee puts the body in the stress response because it stimulates you. It gets everything going, Some people have 2 cups of coffee. And sometimes when they're in stress, have you ever been in a hospital and watched people? How many cups of coffee do some of them have? A lot. They just keep going back and getting another cup of coffee. They're sitting there and they go get another one. Their heart has to be just going boom, 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 just ready to explode. I will say, though, my mom lived to be 91. She would drink a pot of Mr. Coffee a day. Maybe that's why I don't like coffee. I think I was in utero, got a lot of coffee, but I love the smell of coffee, but don't like coffee. But anyway, my mom, it never fazed her. I just go, wow. One day I bought her a Mr. Keurig because she would babysit my dogs when I was out on business trips. I got different flavors, and I came home and she had them all rolled up. She said, I tried all of these. I said, geez, Mom, Keurigs are kind of strong. You probably put yourself in. No, it just seemed to bother me. But, yeah. So know your stress response, know some of these things, and know how you affect, because it does make a difference. And score yourself. Sometimes even this is a good score to give to your clients and see how they're doing. And then there's the other side that's even more appropriate for you, the professional quality of the compassion scale. And you can score that one too and see, how do you feel, How do you as an individual feel on compassion? Do you never feel this way? Rarely, sometimes, often, very often? And how does it do? We know when people are hitting that compassion fatigue level, and we want to try to help them get out of it. So, what do you think, before I go to the slide, what do you think are some ways that you can help yourself when you are in the compassion fatigue level? What are some things you could do for yourself? Take a vacation. Okay, what did you say?
Double inhale, long exhale.
Very good. Double inhale. We're going to practice that actually. What? Meditate. Good for you. Meditate. Setting boundaries. That's a really good one. That's a hard one too for people.
Asking for help.
Ask for help. That's another good one. Those two are the hard ones. Music. Who's said music? Do you play music? Or just listen to music? Listen. How many of you play music, like play the piano or something? Is that relaxing? I don't do it anymore, and I don't know why, but my kids just told me a few weeks ago that one of the favorite things they had was that I always played the piano when they went to bed. I know why I did it. So I could calm down myself, before going to bed. But they said they loved it because they loved hearing me down there playing the piano. So, I should get back on it. Yeah, okay, so you've hit many of them. Check in with yourself daily. It's always important, kind of see how am I today? Where am I at? Even those, I don't know, I have a little thing in my office that's just all these faces, and you can move the square around which face you are. Happy, sad, grumpy, whatever. That's kind of checking in with yourself. But, just getting up in the morning. I used to run at 5 in the morning. I walk now. But when I ran, that was my time to check in with myself, see how I was, how I was doing. That's when I had kids, and I went at 5 in the morning because that's about the only time my husband was ever home. But I could settle the whole day in that hour run, because I'd plan what I was doing, and I'd think where I was at and how things are going. So it gets a thing. And I had to learn to set boundaries. Boundaries, I think you learn to do that over years. At least it took me years. Maybe it didn't take you years. But, I grew up in Nebraska, and we were taught to be nice. Whatever you are, be nice. And so we were always nice. And so you never said no, and you never said, you never said anything really harsh. You did go talk about him, though. That was okay. Passive aggressiveness was quite accepted, but the word was nice. And, so I kind of had to grow out of that and grow into being more, not passive aggressive, be more assertive, and to be more setting my boundaries. I think my church secretary taught us that. We used to take string to her, because when they used to be wrapped, some of you don't know this, but they used to wrap packages. Amazon would be going through balls of string, wrapping up all the ham. And so we'd always take the string to her to wrap, and she had this ball about this big in her office going. And I took her some string one day. She said, you know what? I don't need to do that anymore. She said, nobody uses string anymore. And we put that on her retirement thing, because I think we all need to learn to say that. I don't need to do that anymore. When my kids were little, I did a lot of things at the school for them, where you bake cookies and you go to the carnival and you do all of this. And then I did it at the church, because I had being the PE teacher, I had all the equipment. So they asked me every year to do Bible school, because I could run the best recreation program, because I brought the school stuff over there. My kids are like 15, way out of Bible school. They still wanted me to do it. I go, you know what? I don't need to do that anymore. I did my time. We have to learn to be able to say that sometimes. I don't need to do that anymore. If you move in positions, if you move up to a different position, more of a manager position, there are other things you have to let go so that you can be a better manager. How many of you like being managers? I absolutely loved it. And if you'd have asked me that when I was 21, I probably wouldn't have, because I didn't like to tell people what to do because I was probably not behaving like I should be, maybe. I like to kind of stir the pot when I was younger and teaching. But we all came, 82 of us came at once. Now that's kind of trouble when there's only 120 teachers there. And 82 of us were all newbies. So we grew up together. We had lots of fun. We practically knocked the kids down going to the bar on Fridays, Alma, hooray! I got to get there so I can get a chair. Then about 10 years in, we all had our dogs that were all dying about the same time. Oh, we feel bad for you because of your dog. I know, I remember your dog. Then about 20 years, everybody's getting divorced and the husbands are leaving them, whatever, But, we grew up with that, and that's kind of an okay thing. So check in with your peoples, check in with yourself, and know where you're at. How am I doing? How is my emotional well-being? Anybody journal here? Anybody like to journal in the mornings? Good. Journaling can be fun. I think journaling can be great, especially when you go back and look at it a year later, when you really thought you were really down in the dumps, and then you go back and read it and go, that wasn't so bad. I made it through that. That's where journaling can be good. Gratitude journals are good. All of those things. So look for things and look at how you can make changes. Acknowledge that you have what you have control over and what you don't. The Serenity Prayer is a great prayer for a good reason. Remember what you can have control over and those things that you can't. I had it was a Cocker Spaniel that said, "Blessed are those who expect nothing, for they shall not be disappointed." I think that's really good because, sometimes I would expect my husband to do something and he wouldn't do it. Then I'd be mad. If I probably would have shared with him that I wanted it done, he might have done it. Who's the most reliable in your house?
Me.
You. There you go. You have a dog? How many people have dogs? Who greets you at the door every day? The dog. Yeah. That's why we all have dogs. They're standing at the door going, she's home, she's coming, oh, she's coming. And then you open the door, she's home, and they whirl around the circle, she's home. And I used to say to my husband, just once, if you would act like the dog, you don't know what I might do for you. He said, very funny. I said, yeah, but she's always excited to see me come. She's always excited. What if you did that for your coworkers? You're here. Oh, good, you're here. You don't have to get that excited, but be grateful. Be grateful when they walk in and give them that enthusiasm. That goes a long ways. So I see people do it sometimes. There's people in the office that used to come in all excited. Everybody wanted to check what they had in their thermos because they didn't know why they could be so cheerful at 8 in the morning. What do you got in there? What do you have in your orange juice? So clearly, But there's the positive people, then there's the Debbie Downers. You know who they are too. Don't look for a Debbie Downer when you're not feeling good, because they'll drag you right down with them. Because I see everything bad. I love that character because it was so typical of people. So. Self-care isn't finished. Selfish. Validate your feelings. If you aren't feeling good, know that. Be able to recognize that and say, I don't feel as good today as I could. Maybe, who knows what went on. Maybe you wrecked the car the day before. Maybe you got a call from your elderly parent needing something. I used to get these calls. I'd give my IT to have them nowadays, but I'd get this call like at 10 and I don't know what I've done with my TV. You don't have to come right now. That meant get your butt over here because all I do is watch TV. And if it's not working, I'm done for, life is over. So, but some days I'd be really tired or I had to get up like at 3 in the morning to go on a business travel or whatever, but I still did it. But I have to acknowledge that I'm really tired today. So validate your feelings. Listen to your body. Your body tells you a lot of messages. And the more in tune you are with your body, the better you'll be for taking care of yourself. Remember, caring too much hurts in the long run. You can't fix everybody. You help them, and you listen to them. I'm aging myself. Anybody remember Leo Buscaglia? He talked a lot about listening. He was a professor that taught in California, and his big claim to fame was he taught a lot about love, and he did speeches all over the country. But his big thing is, when I ask you to listen to me, I only mean for you to listen. I don't want you to fix it. We have to remember sometimes that we are just listening. You can offer solutions and offer things, but let people fix it. Balance between caring for yourself and others and be kind to yourself. From the Talmud we hear this: if I am not for myself, who will be for me? That's an important thing. If you don't like who you are well enough to take care of yourself, why would anybody else want to hang with you? This is for you men. If the mom is mad in the house, how does the house go? There is a hush. That's right. There is a hush that comes on if the mom is mad. My kids would go, "Fix her, Dad." I didn't do anything. "Fix her anyway. Fix her. Fix her now." Because the moms can kind of control the house sometimes. So if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Second part of that is very important as well, though. But if I am only for myself, what am I? So you need to know who you are and know what you have to share with others. So you as caregivers, it's very important that you know your own self, know your own limitations, know your own ups and downs, so that you can be best for the people around you. And then I had a little lady, I was doing a Parkinson workshop, and she kept, "There's the third part." And I said, "What's the third part?" She said, "If not now, when?" And that's important. If not today, are you going to start taking care of yourself? When do you intend to? There's no time like the present. Yeah. My answering machine used to say, "This is not an answering machine. This is a questioning machine. Who are you and what do you want?" And I could hear all the neighbors like hanging up, because I had a dock to give in the lake and they wanted to use it. I'd hear them all hanging up. And then they'd call back. And then I go on to say, many people go through their lives never asking themselves these two questions. Who am I and what do I want from my life? Those are important. And it's important that you help your clients learn that as well. So as you go forward. Keeping going back to cutting back on things that are stressful. If you know something's stressful and you're under a lot of stress, maybe don't do it that time. Maybe not the day to clean the house, unless some people that helps them. But really running that vacuum really. But if it doesn't, like me, that doesn't really turn my bucket. When I was really stressful, I would go outside and jog, or else I would go over. We lived both on a lake and a river. You people would call them ponds, but it was sand pits. Anyway, I'd go to the river because the river moved and the lake always set. And if I go to the river and see it moving, that helped me get out of my stress, because I could watch the river go, or I'd pick a log that's going down the river and it goes clear down and you get to see that. So cut back on things that are stressful. Find activities and people that regenerate you. What are some activities that regenerate you? Rejuvenate or regenerate? You said music. Traveling. You said vacation. Yeah, traveling does. Gardening, good. I think gardening's a great one. Do you garden here in Arizona, though? Well, good for you. We tried it. We did it. When I first got here, the United Healthcare had a hiring freeze, so I ended up on the res. We had a gardening thing for the kids. We got it to go, but we had to elevate it quite a ways and get it off the hard ground. But we were growing some nice tomatoes, but the neighbors found out we were growing nice tomatoes. The kids would come the next day and go, "They're all gone, Miss Cheyenne. They're all gone." And somebody would go, "Yeah, we had some of them last night for dinner." Yeah, well, it was supposed to be. But yeah, you can grow a garden, but I haven't had any luck in my own yard. But I had a garden back in Nebraska. I love to garden. My grandparents gardened all the time. That was my grandpa would be out there all the time with huge tomatoes. I don't think our tomatoes down here get quite as good as they do in Nebraska. We had good soil. Exercise. Even if you don't like exercising, I say give it a shot. I taught PE. I exercised every period with the kids. I never not exercised. But when they had to run the track, I checked off the laps. I didn't run with them. And they kind of called me on it. "You don't run with us." "No, I got to check, because I got to make sure you go." And then I went to watch a friend run, and I'm with a good friend, and we're watching this friend run her first 3K or 6K, what it was. I said, "That's really good for you, because it does this and this and this." And my friend looked straight at me and she said, "Well, you must like your fat thighs or you'd be out running." What? So I took her up on it and I started running, and I thought I could run. We had a 3 mile around the lake. I figured I could just get up and do that. I could not. I went about 5 houses. I go, Freddie's going to wake the neighbors up. I'm so huffing and puffing. It took me 3 weeks to be able to run the full 3 miles. But then I never missed a day for 14 years. I had a golden retriever. She would not take no for an answer. So she was my best mate, you know. I said, not today, look at it, it's 12 below out. Woof. No, 12, it's 12 below, it's gonna be really cold. No. Yeah. We'd come in, we both have icicles clear down our chin. But you know what, it was the best thing I did. I loved it. I hate that I can't run now. I can walk, doesn't do the same for me. Elliptical does sort of, but walking, you gotta really hoof it to get it going. Now walking with a friend maybe, but when I walk with my dogs I like it. I see the pretty things, but I don't know that I get a lot of new exercise out of it. Counseling support if you need it, you know, either with a friend or with a real counselor. And then like you said, take time off. So making sure that you do that. And we are gonna do, you said practice breathing, we are gonna practice breathing. And I'm gonna show you just a 3-step breathing. So everybody put your feet flat on the floor. And we are gonna breathe in, and you're gonna breathe from your stomach, not just from your chest like we normally do. People in the United States, we don't even breathe correctly. So you're sitting, we're gonna breathe in for the count of 5, and we're gonna exhale for 10. And we're only gonna do 3 breaths, but relax, okay. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Breathe in, great big, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This time as you exhale, feel your shoulders dropping a little bit and let it go. 8, 9, 10. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you can do that little drill before you make a call to somebody. You can do it at a stoplight. You have plenty of time to do it at a stoplight when you're already stressed. It brings in the air, and oxygen gives you. And if you feel lightheaded, it's because we don't breathe right, and you actually get oxygen into your brain, you know, when you breathe in like this. But it's one of the best things you can do. You can also do progressive relaxation, and you can do it while you're doing the breathing. Just take your hands and squeeze as tight as you can, like you're driving a stressful thing, and squeeze it in as tight as you can, and hold it, and hold it, and now let it go. And you can feel the energy going off your fingertips. Do it one more time. Bring it in and squeeze as tight as you can, and then let it go. And you can feel it relax. Bring your chin up to your head, you know, up to your ears, and feel that. This is how we don't know that we're doing this, but we do this a lot, and then we have really sore shoulders at night. Hold it up there, and now just let it go, and let it all drain out the end of your fingertips. Okay? One more time. Bring it clear up there, and then let it drop clear down. Good, and you can feel it going. And you need to do that sometimes during the day because we get sore necks from being over our desks. We get sore necks for when we sleep or some way we're sitting. And then your legs, bring your feet up towards your face. Just bend your feet up and hold it towards you. Hold it tight. And now let them go and feel it go out your toes. You can feel your legs feel comfortable. These are easy things that you can do while you're sitting at your desk. Bring them up, hold tight, and then exhale. There you go. And the other thing you can do is just do hand lotion or rub your hands. Remember the old TV shows we used to watch where people were in a mental institution or in a place for mental care? You'd always see people rubbing their hands or wringing their hands. You know why they did that? Naturally did that? Because you have all your nerves are in the ends of your fingers and in your hands and in your feet. It's called reflexology. I don't know if I brought it up here. But anyway, your sinuses are in the tips of your fingers. You can just press on the ends of your fingers and you can actually feel it draining your sinuses. But just rubbing your hands can help. Putting lotion on, taking extra time when you're washing your hands can help you feel good. So those are simple things that you can do along the way to help you. And then those of you who have, you all have it, Support Link, but if you haven't been out there to look, there's tools out there. You might even find some of them useful for your clients. But there's mindfulness one, there's a resiliency one, there's a sleep fitness, and there's a meditation one. There's actual kits out there that you can pick up new ideas and use some of them. Another part is, what is Support Link? Do you all know what Support Link is? You don't need the commercial? I think you all know. Support Link is, you know, it's your EAP program, and it's available to you and your family members. And then those are all the things. When I often do the health fairs for the casinos, and they've got a lot of young people who work for them. They really lock into this because they need help with legal things. They need help with the guardians. They need help with, convenience referrals and all of those. So don't forget to use your support link. And there's a number if you don't have it. And then this is a case study. We don't need to do that because we kind of talked about it. At the end of the slide deck, there's a lot of different things. Pretty much we've covered them, but if you want to refresh, there's 2 things there.
We'll send them out after.
She'll send them out and then you can look at them. Then you can take those tests too. And I want to end with one more poem. I buried it. It was right here. Now it's in the middle of one of these pages. There it is. It's called Parson to Person. It says, people are unreasonable, illogical, self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good things, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Try to be successful anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do it anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable, but be honest and frank anyway. People favor the underdogs, but I notice they follow the top dogs. Fight for some underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but they may attack you if you help them. Try to help people anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. As my dad always said, when in doubt, be kind. The easiest thing for all of us to do is to be kind. And when you're working with compassion fatigue, whether it's the client or whether it's you, be kind to yourself, be kind to those who you work with. Thank you for having me here today. If anybody has any questions or something you want to share with the crowd, go ahead, because I know you've got...
Cheyenne, can you talk a little bit about the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's important for our team here to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Burnout is when you have gone through the stages of stress and you're in the 3rd stage of stress. When you get to burnout, it's when you're doing a lot of the same things as compassion fatigue, but it maybe doesn't have to do anything with the empathy. It has to do with you're just tired of the daily grind. It could have more to do with maybe you're tired of your marriage. Maybe you're tired of doing everything at home, always doing the house cleaner. I think I hit my burnout stride when my kids were about 10 and I made a chore chart and said, I'm done. And this is not Hotel Cheyenne. We are all here living. We're all going to do something. Because I just couldn't do anymore. I was working and working and working and I'm always falling behind. That's burnout, where you feel like faster you work, the harder you work, the less you're getting done. That's when you can't quite get on top. And then people start saying things like, work smarter, not harder. Well, that like you want to slap them, Because you are trying to work smart, and sometimes you just get a load. And especially after the pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about burnout after the pandemic, because when people came back to work, there was a shortage of workers. Not everybody came back, so you were maybe not doing just your job. You were doing 3 or 4 other people's job. And you did it because you wanted to keep your job, but that's the quickest way to burn out. It's because you're trying to be all things to all people. Boundaries, going back to the boundaries. That's one of the ways not to end up burnout, is to being able to set your boundaries and say, I can do this, but I can't do it immediately today because I have this and this I have to have done. Otherwise, it's burnout. Now, when you get to compassion fatigue, that's like a secondary, almost a next step of burnout or the final stage of stress, because you've been caring for people. That's the difference with compassion fatigue. It's you're being empathetic all the time, and that's your jobs. But you may be empathetic when you go home too, because you may, like I said, have an elderly parent, or you may have a sick spouse, or you may have a sick child, or just a child who's having a lot of trouble in school. That would be compassion fatigue, because you're feeling empathetic for them, and it wears you down over time. That kind of define them a little bit for you. Okay. Any other? All right, thank you very much for having me here. You're a great group. Good participation. Thank you. The photographer has to